Tonight, the race for the White House comes to an historic end.
It is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
What comes next for America now that Donald Trump is once again set to occupy the Oval Office? Plus, a shifting balance of power on Capitol Hill. Republicans take control of the Senate, as Democrats are holding out hope they'll win the House. And
significant gaps were discovered between me and Gallant in the management of the military campaign.
An election day shakeup in Israeli leadership. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House. From our election headquarters in Virginia Beach, I'm John Jessup.
And good evening in the nation's capital. I'm Jenna Browder. It is the dawn of a new day in America after an election for the history books.
At 5:54 this morning, the Associated Press declared Donald Trump had secured enough electoral college votes to win the office of the president, dashing the hopes of Kamala Harris's campaign.
While opting not to address her watch party supporters as the results came in overnight, today Vice President Harris delivered an address to the nation, conceding the race for the White House.
Now, I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now. I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power.
And Harris spoke with Trump today to congratulate him. President Biden also called Trump with his congratulations. Trump flipped nearly all 7 swing states to become the 47th president of the United States.
The win means he'll be the second president in American history to win 2 non-consecutive terms, despite facing a criminal conviction, an attempted assassination bullet, and a historic opponent. CBN's Jennifer Wichon reports.
In a show of electoral might, Donald Trump has become the first president to win a non-consecutive race for the White House since Grover Cleveland did it more than 130 years ago. Trump's path to victory was blazoned by a trail that flipped nearly all of the coveted swing states. For MAGA faithful, it was a night of redemption. Joined by his wife Melania and his children, Trump stepped out to claim victory in the early hours of the morning.
Frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country.
He renewed his promises on the economy, immigration, and what he calls common sense leadership.
This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have.
Now he'll get to work forming his cabinet, along with J.D. Vance. And he pulled off something that's eluded Republicans for 20 years. Along with the Electoral College, Donald Trump is poised to win the popular vote. Trump won white women by 52%. He also won Latino men and white men. Christian voters also made a difference. Trump won 62% of the Protestant vote and 56% of the Catholic vote. Now comes the hard part of governing. He'll inherit an economy a majority of Americans say isn't working for them, along with 2 wars and mounting tensions with America's foes.
He's going to have to worry about not upsetting the U.S.-China relationship so much that the economic costs spill over into the security realm.
And reuniting the bitterly divided country.
I think what we have tonight is a red, white, and blue wave in this country.
And with Republican Bernie Moreno's Senate win in Ohio and Jim Justice's win in West Virginia, Trump will enjoy a Republican majority in the U.S. Senate. Dozens of House races across the country have yet to be called, but Speaker Mike Johnson, who won his bid for re-election in Louisiana, says he's confident the GOP will retain its majority. Republican control over the White House and Congress would give the GOP a big boost in passing its agenda.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. And that reason was to save our country and to restore America to greatness. And now we are going to fulfill that mission together.
Still, many Christian leaders say followers of Jesus have an important responsibility as the nation works to move forward.
And so we're trying to show people a way to say, hey, regardless if you're a Democrat or a Republican, especially as a Christian, you have to be civil, you have to be constructive, and you have to be looking to help your neighbor.
As Christians, let's try to reconcile and move people closer together and move them forward.
And some leaders say it's okay for Christians to see themselves as outsiders, as Jesus calls us to be.
And when we recognize that we don't have to fit into our current cultural system, we can then engage our community, our culture, not out of anger or by complying to it, but instead in love.
Trump says he believes success is what will bring the country back together. When he starts implementing his agenda and the country has some wins, he believes the nation will begin to heal. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Well, CBN News chief political analyst David Brody joins us now for more. David, so former President Donald Trump had more routes available in his path to victory. Ultimately, though, he had pretty much a clean sweep. How did he defeat Vice President Kamala Harris?
Well, John, it was a multiracial assault, if you will, all across the country. What do I mean by that? You know, when he came in 2016, when he came onto the scene and he won, it was kind of a white working class president, if you will. And that has now changed to be a multiracial working class president. If you look inside the numbers, Hispanic, his support among Hispanics up 13 points from 2020. Black men, especially under the age of 50, up as well. And then you just go into other demographics. Gen Z up 6. He did 5 points better with women. You know, it's funny, John and Jenna, the only subset group he didn't do as well with was white voters, actually. So that kind of gives you a sense about how he has broadened his appeal. And for sure, there is a mandate coming in 2025.
Yeah, specifically the white college-educated women. David, on the evangelical vote, how important was that this time around?
Well, it was crucial, and it really set the tone early in North Carolina and Georgia. Those numbers were through the roof. You know, they were at least 10 or 12 points higher in those specific states. Overall, Donald Trump won 81% of evangelicals across the country. Just to give you an idea, in 2020, 4 years before that, it was 76%. So he took a dip in 2020. It was very good in 2016, 80%. So if you look at all 3 times he's run, 81% this time around was the high water mark. So he's increased his evangelical support through the last, what is it, about 8 years? It feels about 80 years, but it's been about 8 years, I think.
David, last night we saw early in the night Republicans flip the Senate. The first key win was in West Virginia with Jim Justice. What are the chances, though, that they take the House as well?
Pretty good, 70%, 80% or so. I'm not going to make a prediction or anything like that, though you never know. But I will say this, that we're looking at California. That's going to be the key, especially in that Orange County area down into the south of L.A. Portion of the country, where a lot of those results come in late. Obviously, it's on the West Coast, but beyond that, they take a little while to count there. But the internal numbers, at least for the Republicans, they say it looks very good. And so you're looking at potential here of a House that's Republican-led. You got a Senate that is definitely going to be Republican-led, and a White House, which means the mandate is not only coming, but the political will to do some things in Washington needs to happen quickly in those first 100 days.
David, it was a tough night for Democrats, and tonight they're definitely doing some soul-searching. Where does the Democratic Party go from here?
Well, Jenna, you're right. I mean, there is a lot of soul-searching tonight among the Democrat Party, and what I have seen so far has been somewhat refreshing in the sense that they realize that they're not connecting with the common man, the voters. They've gotten away from what Democrats used to be in this country, kind of appealing to the blue-collar, just kind of regular guy out out there, the lunch bucket crowd, and that hasn't happened. They've gone more woke, if you will. They've gone more to the college-educated, the elitist crowd, all of that type of vertical movement. Instead, they got to get more horizontal, and I think they understand that, and they got to work on it.
All right, CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And CBN's Gordon Robertson joins us now for more. Gordon, what's your overall read on this election?
Well, it's certainly an historic election and one that, you know, you go back to Grover Cleveland to find any kind of parallels. In terms of how it played out after the assassination attempt, and here he is bloodied on the ground, and he gets up and says, fight, fight. I just thought it was an iconic moment in American history, and that picture of him with the American flag behind him and blood coming down his face, in my view, sealed the deal. I didn't think it was possible for anyone to catch him at that point. And then a whole series of unforced errors. You know, back in another lifetime, I was involved in political campaigns in the end of the 80s and the early 90s, and it was all about command focus and staying on message and don't get distracted, and a series of unforced errors, whether is Harris, what's her racial identity? I was like, are you kidding me? Why in the world are you bringing that up? And then in the debate performance, talking about immigrants eating cats in a town in Ohio. Well, you know, what are you doing? And it just seemed to me he was fumbling it away. But at the end of the day, we've seen it. He rolled. I mean, there was kind of a clean sweep. The so-called blue wall was completely red. And why? And I think inflation needs to be number one on that. When you're talking about why are Hispanics, why are black men, why are minorities who otherwise wouldn't be affiliated with him, why would they see him as the answer to their financial need, an answer to the American dream moving forward to make America great again? Why are they buying that and voting for that? And I think it's clear the inflation has completely eroded their paychecks. They're making questions about, do I pay for rent? Do I pay for food? Do I pay for gasoline? You know, how am I managing my budget? And the Biden-Harris administration just seemed to ignore all the signs. And I remind everyone, Larry Summers, a Democrat, warned them in the first year, you really have to watch out for inflation. You can't overstimulate this economy. You can't be giving out this kind of money because it's going to create artificial demand that the supply chain can't match. We're hearing a lot in the after, you know, it's all COVID and it's all supply chain. You put that kind of demand in that environment, and then you allow 9 million new people in who are undocumented. What is that going to do to rents? What's that going to do to prices? And so we see it clearly played out in the voting booth.
Real quickly, you know, we're still clearly a divided nation. I listen to you commentary. Your commentary often talks about a house divided will fall. What role can Christians play in healing that divide?
Well, it's supposed to be our job.
Supposed to be.
We're supposed to be salt, which is a preservative. We're supposed to be light to show people the way forward. I think some of the rhetoric in the campaign, whether it's, you know, the only garbage I see is the supporters of Donald Trump, or, you know, some of the comments from Trump himself, that seem to be dividing people as opposed to uniting them. As Christians, how do we reach out with love and compassion to let people know God loves them, we love them too, we can come together as one nation? Our nation has seen incredible struggles over the years, whether it was the revolution itself and that war, the British burned the White House to the ground, there was a horrible civil war, just, you know, brother against brother. And in that struggle, trying to overcome slavery, which was absolutely horrible. You look at those things. Then go to World War I, go to World War II, go to Korea, go to Vietnam. I lived through Vietnam. I lived through the Civil Rights Movement. I lived through all of those assassinations. And then I lived through Richard Nixon. So have we been in really bad situations before? The answer is yes. What brought us through? There's a wonderful book where it's just a recounting of all the prayers of the presidents. Those were all supported by Christians who said, yes, there's a government in Washington, but there's a government over that government. And that kingdom cannot be shaken, and that king can't be changed. He's not elected. He created. Let's appeal to him. Let's have this wonderful appeal to heaven to come and heal our land. And in that appeal, let's make sure we're reaching across with love. So if in your town there's a place called the other side of the tracks, is there a place called a ghetto? Is there a place where they're poor and oppressed? Well, what should you as a Christian do? How can you reach out? When we say we the people, let's mean it. We're the ones responsible for our culture. We're the ones responsible for our society. We're not depending on dictates from Washington, D.C. If we are, it's a mistake. If we can appeal to heaven and then appeal to ourselves, are we being light? Are we being salt? And if we can do that, yes, we can heal these divides.
Gordon, I don't think anyone could have said it any better. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, a major shakeup in Israel. Plus, what a Trump presidency means for the Jewish state. When Faith Nation returns.
Welcome back. The reaction to Donald Trump's election victory is rippling across the Middle East.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu congratulated Trump in a phone call, and the two leaders discussed the growing threat from Iran. Election day in America also came during a major shakeup in Israel. Netanyahu fired Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, triggering protests in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Netanyahu said the trust between them and Gallant had broken down over the past few months.
Significant gaps were discovered between me and Gallant in the management of the military campaign, and these gaps were accompanied by statements and actions that contradict the decisions of the government and the decisions of the cabinet.
Gallant said he disagreed with Netanyahu on three main issues: a military draft for ultra-Orthodox men, how to free hostages, and a commission to investigate the political and security failures of October 7th. Gallant ended with a salute.
To the wounded and the disabled, to the hostages and their families, and to the IDF fighters, I trust you and I salute you.
Netanyahu has replaced Gallant with Foreign Minister Israel Katz. And Gordon Robertson joins us again for analysis. Gordon, Netanyahu was among the first world leaders to congratulate Trump. What does a Trump presidency mean for Israel and the ongoing war there, and his dismissal of Israel's defense minister?
Well, I think Israel is rejoicing today over a Trump presidency because it's his policies when in his first term, were decidedly pro-Israel. And one of the first things he did was eliminate all the funding for UNRWA. And it's been proven UNRWA was a main funder and employer of Hamas terrorists. So that is going to be very welcome news in Israel, that UNRWA, under a Trump administration, he's not just going to move to defund U.S., he's going to make moves at the UN. It's time for that agency to be dissolved. There is another UN refugee agency. UNRWA was specifically formed for the Palestinians. It's time for that to end because it maintains a false dream, this right of return, that those who left in 1948 will somehow be able to reclaim land in Israel. That's never going to happen, and we need to stop funding that dream. So that's number one. Number two, it's the end of the two-state solution. Ambassador David Friedman under Trump put out a book calling exactly for that. So we'll see an incredible change in American official foreign policy, which for decades have been advocating for a two-state solution. I will point out the Palestinians have been the ones that have consistently rejected that, not Israel, the Palestinians. at this point in time, that whole concept, I think, is now dead, at least for the next 4 years.
All right, CBN's Gordon Robertson, we're just going to have to leave it there. We always appreciate your insights and taking time to be with us.
Appreciate being with you.
Likewise.
Thank you, Gordon.
Well, up next, the battle over abortion on Election Day. We break down the results right after this.
Welcome back. States across the country voted on constitutional amendments protecting abortion. Those amendments passed in Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, Missouri, and Montana. They were voted down in Florida, Nebraska, and South Dakota. Kristen Hawkins, president of Students for Life of America, told CBN News that the Florida measure would have allowed an abortion through the third trimester.
If this would have passed in Florida, a woman could have said her mental health would be at risk for giving birth or having a child, and it would have justified abortion even in the 9th month of pregnancy. So it's a massive win. Thanks to the pro-life movement, thanks to Governor DeSantis, that we defeated Amendment 4 in Florida.
And New York and Maryland also passed measures supporting abortion.
Well, voters also made some historic decisions on election night, for the first time electing 2 black women to serve in the Senate simultaneously. Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester won the Senate race in Delaware, defeating her independent and Republican challengers, while Democrat Angela Also Brooks became Maryland's first black senator. Voters also elected Delaware's Sarah McBride to the House, sending the first openly transgender person to Congress.
Still ahead, this centuries-old election tradition takes the cake. That's next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, the election cake has been baked, both metaphorically and literally.
Connecticut's Old State House is keeping a centuries-old tradition alive with an election cake bake-off. A group of the state's best bakers competed in Hartford on Saturday, putting their own spin on a recipe that dates back to 1771.
Election cake was a way to feed everyone coming to Hartford. Election day used to be more like inauguration day almost than what we think of as election day. So it was a big party, a big celebration.
The bake-off winner has the honor of baking the birthday cake for the Old State House anniversary in 2025. Jenna, it sounds like a field trip is in order.
I love that. I love that they've kept it alive all these years. What a great tradition.
Well, thanks for watching Faith Nation.
Have a great night.